Let's say China.
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 China. China. China. China.
There are next door neighbors, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
You go over to China.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Trump statement, tweeting out insults to Angela Merkel. What's he doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host.
Yes. Hello, and welcome. I am James Andrews, and you are listening to So This Happened, the only news you need if you are so dedicated to your job that even when you should be curled up in bed, you decide to go to the studio to do your job. Now that, my friends, is fucking dedication, and if that is you, I applaud you. It is Monday, the 5th of February 2018, and I will apologise right off the bat. My voice is not as great as it is every other day. I do have a little bit of a cold, and therefore I'm going to try not to talk very much today, but as you know well, that's not something I can do very easily. But today, Donald Trump made an absolute tit of himself by claiming that the National Health Service in England was, in quotes, going broke and not working. This caused quite an outcry from politicians in the United Kingdom. Donald Trump was referring to a march that took place in London over the weekend, which was a Save the National Health Service march. What they were doing was asking for more money, not suggesting that it was going broke. From Downing Street, Theresa May said that she was very proud of the UK's system. And the organisers of the demonstration that took place this weekend said that it had been aimed at showing people's love for the NHS, not their hatred of the NHS, as Donald Trump sort of figured it was. Even the chief executive of the NHS in England said the US president had, and I quote, got the wrong end of the stick, which I think is a phrase that you could apply to Donald Trump quite a lot recently. According to media outlets, Donald Trump gathered this information from, you guessed it, Fox News. Nigel Farage, the ex-UKIP leader and now sort of just big pain in the arse and buddy to Donald Trump, was on Fox and Friends and talking about how much he hated the NHS and how evil it was and how bad it was and how people were dying and it's terrible. And Donald Trump listened to that and said, yeah, that must be true. Nigel Farage, that man only speaks the truth. And so he tweeted it without checking any other facts, but was called out beautifully, I feel. Many people even went as far as to point out to Donald Trump exactly why they were marching. The people love the NHS and they are very, very upset with what the Tory, the Conservative government, is doing to it. So the march was not a, we hate the NHS because we're all getting sick and dying. It was a, we love the NHS but we don't like what the government is doing in trying to kill it. So essentially Donald Trump's point was, people in England hate the NHS, and that's what the Democrats want to do, is do National Health Service, and look what's going to happen. You're going to have protests, riot, it's going to be terrible because people hate it. The exact opposite was in fact true of the demonstrations over the weekend. So, yes, Donald, you got the wrong end of the stick on that one. And one of my favourite things in the world is when somebody gets caught in a lie, and the only thing better than that is when they get caught in a lie on national television in front of millions of viewers. This morning on Fox and Friends, Devin Nunnes was on there talking about the memo that was declassified last week, and he was asked about George Papadopoulos, who in the memo apparently got drunk and spilt the beans to Secret Agent Steele, the less attractive James Bond. Nunnes then went on to say that, well, here's what Nunnes said on Fox and Friends.
Some say, well, what about Papadopoulos? They started looking at him earlier. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say that if Papadopoulos was such a major figure, why didn't you get a warrant on him? If Papadopoulos was such a major figure, you had nothing on him. You know, the guy lied. As far as we can tell, Papadopoulos never even knew who Trump was, or never even had met with the president. And look, getting drunk in London and talking to diplomats, saying that you don't like Hillary Clinton, is really, I think it's kind of scary that our intelligence agencies would take that and use it against an American citizen.
Okay. Congressman, thank you so much.
Okay, so there was Devin Nunez on Fox and Friends this morning, and did you spot the lie? Because it's fairly obvious. He said there that Papadopoulos didn't even know Donald Trump, had never met him. Well, if you go to your computer or your phone right now and just type in photograph of Donald Trump and George Papadopoulos, you're going to find a few. So to suggest on national television that, no, look, I mean, Papadopoulos never even met Donald Trump, there's photographs and what have you, but they didn't meet. I mean, they were sitting next to each other, but nobody actually said, Donald, George, Donald, meet each other. That never happened. They just happened to be in the same frame of the photograph. You see what I mean? It's just bullshit, isn't it? It's all just bullshit. I'm getting bored of the bullshit. And speaking of more bullshit, this one is staggering to me, and this to me is a very sad statement of where we have come in 2018 in America. In Illinois, there is a man, Arthur Jones, who is a very spry 70 years old, is running for the state's 3rd congressional district. Now, he will be running as a Republican and unopposed. Okay, the problem is, this idiot Jones is a confirmed Nazi and Holocaust denier. He has said that he is the former head of the American Nazi Party. One of his favourite phrases is, the blood of the Southern Confederate and the Northern Yankee are both in me. Which I don't really know what that means. Anyway, he says he was a Vietnam veteran, although there's a little bit of controversy over that too, because nobody quite knows if he is. But he laid out his platform on his campaign website, and it includes stopping illegal immigration, doing away with sanctuary cities, and repealing and replacing Obamacare. His campaign slogan is, "It's time to put America first." Now that all just sounds like a Donald Trump fan, doesn't it? That's just what you would expect to be from a Donald Trump. The thing with this moron Jones, though, he claims that the Holocaust is the biggest lie in history, the biggest blackest lie in history, if I want to use his words. And he also called the people in the Charlottesville incident last year where that girl was killed, the people who were burning tiki torches and chanting Nazi slogans, they are white patriots. This is true. This is actually a man who is running for Congress unopposed. Now, it's very unlikely that he will get in. It's a heavily Democratic area that he's running in, but the fact that some fuckwit like this can actually stand up and say, yeah, I am qualified to be in the government, and the fact that people, thousands of people, will vote for him is staggering. Now, of course, the Republican Party has come out and said, no, he's a fringe Republican. He's not one of us mainstream Republicans. He's a fringe Republican. Okay, so if that's the case, why don't you just throw up anybody? Just find somebody in that district who will run against him, and they'll probably win. But the GOP doesn't want to do that. They say, he's just a fringe, he's a Republican, yes, we admit that, but he's a fringe Republican. I don't know. There just seems to be, you have to stand up at one point and say, you know what, fuck it, you are not a Republican. If that's what you truly believe, you can't be considered a Republican. We will not allow it to happen. But they're okay with it. They just go, yeah, he's a fringe, and we don't like that kind of behaviour and language, but we're not going to do anything about it. We just don't like it, it's And I think it's just because I'm not feeling very well, but I'm in a really antagonistic mood today, so I'm going to go back to Donald Trump. Right now, there is a bill being drafted, a bipartisan bill on the DREAM Act, the DACA Act. And it essentially will allow a legal pathway to citizenship for the Dreamers, but it doesn't include any financing for Donald Trump's wall. So this may well be a plan that the Republicans and the Democrats come together on and are able to keep the government open. Donald Trump today said, if there's no funding for my wall, it's not fucking happening, so just get that through your thick goddamn heads. I want my wall, I need my wall, I promise my wall, I want my wall. And that really just goes to show what Donald Trump really wants to do as president, doesn't it? He doesn't give a shit whether there's bipartisan agreement. If he doesn't get his way, he's not going to sign anything, and therein lies a massive problem for both the Democrats and also the Republicans, because they know they can come to an agreement with the Democrats, but if it doesn't include financing for that fucking wall, Donald Trump won't sign it. So it's a complete waste of time. So in some ways, everybody's hands are completely tied. They're being held hostage by Donald Trump. It's staggeringly, it boggles my mind. It really does. Anyway, enough of that. Yesterday was the Super Bowl, and congratulations to the Philadelphia Patriots. Well done. Now I know it's the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm just being English. Philadelphia Eagles won last night. Apparently, it was the first time they've ever won, which is really cool. The Patriots lost, which apparently Donald Trump is very upset about because they are his team, his mates Brady, Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick. Good friends of Donald Trump there. But perhaps the most important part of the Super Bowl for most people are the commercials, the adverts. People love them. They're very funny. I saw one or two of them and they made me chuckle. There was one advert last night though which has people rather upset, and that was the car company Dodge, who makes some pretty spectacular automobiles. They had a commercial for their Ram trucks, which if you don't live in the States, they're big trucks. Anyway, in that commercial they used excerpts from a speech by Martin Luther King Jr. And Dr. King was featured alongside shots of US Marines, American football players, cowboys obviously, and pickup trucks. Obviously trying to sell pickup trucks, they're going to be there. But this has caused quite a bit of controversy. People are saying, really, Dr. King wants everybody to buy a Ram truck? And to make things even worse, the excerpts that they used, now I would love to play it, but I'm not allowed to play it because I'm just not allowed to play it. Copyright, whatever. Anyway, but in the commercial, Dr. King is talking about the value of service. And they're using this to say, yeah, buy a Ram truck. It will serve you well for many years. Dr. King fucking said it. The actual quote they used was, if you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. And then the commercial flashed up the Ram slogan, which is built to serve. Now you can kind of see when they were sort of the ad execs were coming up with it, going, well, what can we do? We've got to sell these trucks. Let's see. Dr. Martin Luther King. That's obviously who comes to my mind when I talk about pickup trucks. And everybody there around the table is going, well, yeah, of course, Dr. King. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Let's put Dr. King on the advert to sell trucks, because he would be a truck driver, absolutely. And he had some fairly good things to say. So let's use them and equate them to our trucks. Brilliant. So maybe on paper, when they were discussing this, they were like, that's a good idea. When they filmed it, maybe they watched it and goes, oh, you know what, maybe this isn't great. But they didn't know. They just looked and goes, yeah, this is bloody brilliant. Yes, bloody brilliant. Love it. And they put it out there. And apparently Ford is going to be using Gundy in some of their commercials as well to sell their pickup truck. And I think Chrysler was going to use Rosa Parks in an advert for their minivan. Sort of under the slogan, you can sit anywhere you want on this minivan. Anyway, that's it. We're not quite out of time, but my voice is absolutely out of time. So I am going to bid you all a good night. We can always continue this conversation on Twitter or Facebook if you would like. And please subscribe and like the podcast and write a nice little comment for me. That helps with ratings, and then more people can have a listen to the show. So anyway, listen, take care, have a great night, and we'll do this all again on Wednesday. I'm going to go and have a little Irish cure. Bye.